Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So it's my second time trying to present something online. So let's see how it works. Because last time I remember one difficulty was that I couldn't really get used to presenting to a computer in a dark room. So it'd be nice if devotees are okay to switch on their videos so we can have more kind of a human connection, so we can see, because it's optional. Okay, let's see how it works. Oh, yeah, that's the best. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we'll be speaking about the second part of the seminar on the prayers of the morning program. So this is a very important topic for all the devotees in International Society for Krishna Consciousness, because it's our heritage from Srila Prabhupada. All these prayers were selected personally by our founder Acharya and have deep significance in our spiritual life. So before we go on with today's discussion, we would like to recap a little bit on what we discussed previously, or at least where we stopped. So that was the structure for day one. We've spoken through introduction. We covered a little bit of the history of the morning program, meaning we've spoken from where all the different prayers and all the different parts of the prayer, where they originate from. Yeah. And then we've spoken about how Srila Prabhupada, how and where, for the first time he encountered all these prayers. And also we've spoken about the practice in International Society for Krishna Consciousness, how for the first time they were introduced and in what circumstances. So that was the history, the little chronology. And then we started talking just the beginning of the part, which is called Mindful Bhajan. Mindful Bhajan. And we've spoken about the first, we've spoken about the 5 lessons of taste. Is anyone here who's been to the first part of this seminar?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yep. Okay. So
yes, Prabhu, I did as well.
Oh yeah, I can scroll through everyone here. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah, I've watched it since. I watched it like yesterday.
Okay. On YouTube. So we've spoken about the 5 lessons of taste, means the 5 things that we can implement in our spiritual life, so we can increase our taste and appreciation, not just for the prayers of the morning program, but throughout the whole spiritual practice, whether it's association with devotees, or it's chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita, and so on. So let's quickly go through them again. So these are the 5 lessons. So we started, the whole structure is based on the verse from, very famous verse, from Nectar of Instruction, Sri Upadeshamrita by Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. And the 2 principles from the verse number 7, Anudinam and Adarat. Anudinam means the practice has to be performed every single day, or another translation of Anudinam is 24 hours a day. It depends on the limb of devotional service that we are meaning, what we're meaning to practice. So the second lesson is Adarat, means not just doing something every day. So many people do things every day, but the whole process of doing this thing every day makes people generally very robotic and mechanistic. So we don't want that. Therefore, Srila Goswami is warning us. He says, not just every day, not just 24 hours a day, but it has to be Adarat. It has to be with attention, with respect, acknowledging its importance in our life, and trying to always bring our attention to the present moment, to what we're actually doing right now, and remembering the goals of our doing this. Otherwise, what is the point? And this is the principle, these two principles are principles of mode of goodness, at least. Because mode of goodness, mode of passion is being in future. Mode of ignorance is lamenting over the past. And mode of goodness means to try to be here and now, present. So the next lesson we were talking about attitude. This is coming from a famous phrase, one of the very famous Mahavakyas, something which was coined by Srila Prabhupada himself. And the phrase is present in the introduction to the same book, Nectar of Instruction. Srila Prabhupada says that the success in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So we broke down what is attitude. So attitude can be, it consists of two things. So the first side of attitude means, what is our relationship? What do we consider this thing to be? Whatever attitude is towards. So it can be whimsical. So it's based on pride. So we think that I'm higher than this thing. You know, when we study the scriptures, it's like the scientists, for example, for them to study something usually means that you have to kill it first. You know, to study a frog, first you need to kill the frog, and then you have to dissect and study all the different parts. That means this attitude is based on pride. It means I'm higher than this thing, therefore I'm studying it. And sometimes we can have exactly the same attitude for studying Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm higher than this Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, you know, I create all the different structures and different tables and understanding how many questions the sages ask. But while doing so, we actually kill the spirit of it. And the other attitude, which is the positive side of the attitude, is based on humility. It means understanding that the process is descending, not ascending. So my humble attitude, understanding that this thing which I'm trying to understand, this thing which I'm trying to get into, is my goal. And is given to me from my authorities, passed down. And not by mechanistic, we quoted the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's purport from 176, where Srila Prabhupada said that not by mechanistic hearing and chanting we can achieve success in the spiritual path, but only through pleasing Krishna and Guru. So it means by their mercy there can be some success, pleasing Guru and Krishna. And another side of the attitude means, our attitude can be humble, but if we're not doing anything actively, so what is our response towards that? So it can be either active or passive. So the attitude has to be humble, sincere, serious, and at the same time we have to be active. We have to act upon this understanding. And seva, the lesson number 4, understanding that without service, there's no deeper dimension in our spiritual life. You know, we can read all Srila Prabhupada's books and study many different, higher topics and memorize many shlokas and discuss everything, with a very advanced devotees and hear their lectures and, try to memorize many things. And everything is very theoretical without actually practicing it, without actually trying to engage in service with other devotees. So it gives depth to our practice and gives us a frame of reference. And I'm sure many of the devotees here or present here, to some degree, we all had this experience that by doing service, we gain this kind of frame of reference to understand other philosophical points in Krishna consciousness. When we're engaged in devotional service and when it's a little bit intense, and then when we open the books, we feel the difference of us studying the books when we are actually in the process of being deeply engaged in devotional service. And the last lesson, of course there are more lessons, but these are the main ones that were standing out, is the lesson of humility. Trinadapi Sunichina. So being humble, being tolerant, respectful, and expect known respect and appreciation towards ourselves. It's a very high platform, but this is something that we need to aspire. Why? Because we analyze Sri Gurvastakam prayers, and the second verse is speaking about ignorance means, what was the Sanskrit for that? Means I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for that, for the holy names. Well, this is Rishara Garanga Prabhu connected. Hare Krishna. Yes, and the fourth verse is explaining about taste. So it means the meaning of how we can destroy ignorance. There was a parallel to the verse in Nectar of Instruction, number 7, that we were quoting in the beginning. So to destroy the ignorance and to obtain taste, it only comes from being humble, tolerant, respectful, and not expecting any respect towards ourselves. So hopefully that makes little sense. Would anyone have any questions on this 5 lessons that we just recapped? Anyone has any comments? Okay. So being right now here in the holy land of Vrindavan, right next to Govardhan. Actually, if you like, I don't know whether you can see. But this is Govardhan, you can actually see it from here. Raj Maharaj Ki Jai. So being here, we're thinking how to start the second session. By the mercy, one interesting quote came to mind. Do you remember this famous puzzle that atheists, they like to challenge people who believe in God? They ask the question, I think it's called circular reasoning. They say, can God create a stone that he cannot lift? So basically, if God can create a stone, then he won't be able to lift it. But if God cannot create a stone, then he cannot create a stone. So how come he's all powerful? We know that one of the main qualities, one of the main lakshanas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be almighty, to be able to do anything and everything. And many times, people who are asking this question, they think that by asking this question, they actually corner the person who has faith. Once the same question was asked to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada said, of course, Krishna can create a stone that he won't be able to lift, and then he will lift it. So being here in Govardhan, in the place where Krishna lifted this big stone, Govardhan Hill, and he was holding Govardhan Hill for 7 days to perform this beautiful lila. So I wanted to start with this little question. I remember once I was visiting my family, and we were driving with my mom in the car, and I was listening to a Christian radio. And what I've heard from this Christian priest was a very interesting discussion, and it was really deeply moving. I was really impressed by that. He was reading from the Bible, from John 8. If you don't mind, I'll read a little bit from there. So here's the picture. So it's a discussion between Lord Jesus Christ and his followers. He says, okay, so once more Jesus said to them, I'm going away, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. This made the Jews ask, Will he kill himself? Is that why he says, "Well, I can go, you cannot come"? But he continued, "You are from below, and I am from above. You are of this world, and I am not of this world. I told you that you will die in your sins. If you don't believe that I am He, you will indeed die in your sins." "Who are you?" they asked. "Just what I have been telling you from the beginning," Jesus replied. "I have much to say in judgment of you, but He who sent me is trustworthy. And what I have heard from Him, I tell the world." They did not understand that He was telling them about His Father. So Jesus said, "When you have lifted up the Son of a Man," means crucified, "then you will know that I am He, and I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases Him." Even as He spoke, many believed Him. So the most interesting part was the commentary of the priest. And he is writing, he said that the Savior was rejected by the people who were to receive Him in the first place. No evidence, no miracles, no prophecies allowed Christ to prove the Jews that He was the Messiah, promised by God. Addressing the religious leaders of Israel, the Savior utters bitter words. "You will die in your sins, for you do not believe that it is I. You will die in your sins." Basically, if you don't believe that He was the one sent by God. Here we hear neither threat nor condemnation, only inescapable sadness and a feeling of hopelessness. And the last phrase was the most amazing thing he said. He said, "And the human heart, in his case, turned out to be the stone that God could not lift." So the only stone that God actually cannot lift is the stone of human heart. In the 31st chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami explains about the different types of heart. So there are 3 types of heart: the soft heart, there are hard hearts, and so on. So I just read from here. He said, "On the whole, the heart in any of the different conditions mentioned above can be melted under certain circumstances, just as a hard diamond is sometimes melted by a combination of certain chemicals." Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Once he was asked how to obtain love of God, and he answered, "You only need a few paisa." Devotees couldn't understand. He said, "Yeah, you only need a few paisa. And you go to the market and get 2 books. The first one is Pratana, and the second one is Prema Bhakti Chandrika. These 2 books are the songbooks of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Basically, by studying and singing, understanding and connecting with these prayers, our heart, which is like a stone, can be melted. So these bhajans, they're like, Srila Prabhupada says, a combination of certain chemicals which can melt even a heart which is hard as diamond. Therefore, in next section, we will try to talk and discuss how mindful bhajan, how being connected to what actually what's going on in the temple, wherever we practice, wherever we sing, chant these prayers, how these prayers how to connect to them, what is their potency, and why the music has so much prominent position in the practice of bhakti, and why actually the songs of acharyas are so powerful. So, next slide. Mindful bhajan. So, what is bhajan? So there are two definitions to this word, bhajan. So it's coming from the verb bhaj. Like most Sanskrit words, they originate from verbal roots. So this root bhaj means to serve with transcendental love or to worship. So there are synonyms, and those who read Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam with Sanskrit, this word bhajan, or words with a similar root bhaj, they appear quite often. And the way Srila Prabhupada translates them many times is loving devotional service, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or bhakti. And another definition of the word bhajan is a devotional song. So it's interesting connection. The devotional song and loving devotional service and worshipping the Supreme Personality of God and the bhakti itself, that's the same word. Is the same word. Srila Prabhupada's introduction from a Vaishnava songbook. It's actually a wonderful piece of literature which was compiled in 1971, 72 by Achyutananda Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very pleased with Achyutananda Maharaj's endeavor to compile all the prominent and famous songs of the Vaishnava acharyas. And this is from the introduction that Srila Prabhupada wrote to this book himself. Yes, 72. I'm greatly pleased to see this collection of songs composed by Thakur Bhaktivinoda, Narottam Das, and other great acharyas of the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, Sampradaya. It is actually very, very interesting. Community, and Prabhupada calls community Sampradaya, but it's a different topic anyway. Songs composed by the acharyas are not ordinary songs. When chanted by pure Vaishnavas who follow the rules and regulations of Vaishnava character, they are actually effective in awakening the Krishna consciousness dormant in every living entity. We should always remember the danger of Maya's influence and endeavor to save ourselves from her great power. We must therefore always merge in the transcendental mellow of Kirtan Ras. For Kirtan Ras is the safest situation within this material world. So we highlighted the part of the last sentence because it's especially pertinent to our today's situation. The Kirtan Ras is the safest situation within the material world. In fact, Krishna also says that the place where devotees are glorifying him, this is where he resides. Kirtan Ras is the safest situation within this material world. So if we want to be in a safe situation, we need to be absorbed in chanting. In glorifying, Kirtan Ras means glorification, the taste of glorifying Krishna. This is the true safety that we will appreciate. So singing itself is actually very natural for the practice of bhakti. I think it was Jayadvaita Maharaj who once said, if everyone in the Hare Krishna movement would be, I don't think he said aloud, but would be engaged according to what they think their propensity is, probably 90% of all International Society for Krishna Consciousness will be musicians. And in fact, you can see so many devotees in our movement being very talented musically, whether they knew it before Krishna Consciousness or it was discovered while they were already practicing. So why are these two things, music and bhakti, why are they so related? So our music is something that is always related to feelings, expression of our emotions. So this is more of a qualitative value rather than quantitative. What we mean by that is that it's not something that we can measure. It's something that we can definitely feel, it does exist, but it's not really measurable. There is no way we can measure why one song is making us cry and the other one doesn't. This is just too complex. And let's look through Srimad Bhagavatam and other different places in Vedic literatures, which shed light a little bit on this topic, why music, art, is related to bhakti so much. So in the 11th canto, in the 3rd canto, sorry, you have Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th chapter, verse 47. Sparshas tasya bhavat jiva svaro deha udahrita usmanam indriyani aho anta sthita balam atmanah svara sapta viharina bhavanti sma prajapatihe. So Brahma's soul was manifested as to touch alphabets, his body as the vowels, his senses as the sibilant alphabets, his strength as the intermediate alphabets, and his sensual activities as the 7 notes of music. It's interesting. If we look in the Sanskrit, viharina means pastimes related to loving or amorous exchanges. So something which is related to expressing feelings and emotions, and usually feelings and emotions of the highest caliber are related to our loving affairs, related to expressing our most the feelings which we wouldn't want to share with everyone we meet on the street. So something very personal, something very sacred. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 22, verse 31 in the purport, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, while translating, I guess it was prabhu, he wrote, the vibration of particular types of music or rhetoric reveal the inner feelings of other living beings. So, moreover, the vibration of particular types of music, they reveal the inner feelings of other living beings. Moreover, means each of the notes has a potency to invoke a particular type of emotions or particular type of taste. There's a scripture called Sangita Markanda. So this is a scripture which is describing, Sangita means a song or music. So there's a piece of Vedic literature which is dedicated, which was revealed to explain the science of music and how is it influencing our consciousness and what is its purpose. And so the first note, sa, is adbhutaras, wonder. Actually, the first note, sa, it has the potency to invoke 2 rasas, adbhutaras and viraras, chivalry. The second note, ri, is rodaras, anger. Third note, ga, santaras, neutral-ras. The fourth note, ma, is hasyaras, the ras of laughter. The fifth note, pa, is madhurya-ras, conjugal. Sixth note is da, vibhatsa, disgust. And the 7th note, ni, is karuna-ras, pathetic feeling. Now, many statements in the Srimad Bhagavatam describing Krishna playing the 5th note on his flute, or the bees or the cuckoos singing on the 5th note. So after reading this description here, some of the statements in Srimad Bhagavatam become more clear. What does this 5th note represent? In the same Sangita Shastra, there's another interesting statement. It says that the human body is actually nothing else but the most complex musical instrument that can produce all of these notes. That means there is no other body, if we take all the bodies as musical instruments. Most animals, they produce sounds. So, in the human body, in that sense is also the most advanced because it can produce all 7 of these notes. And therefore, in other sense, we can take this statement means, they say if the human body is the most advanced type of body and is the only body that can produce all the 7 notes, then we can make a conclusion that what is the goal of human life? If it's related to music, that the goal of human life is to sing in ecstasy and glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so there is no other goal. And like Prabhupada said that the goal of chanting Hare Krishna is to chant Hare Krishna even more. So what is the practice? It is the goal. And this is the highest emotion that can be expressed, Prema Bhakti. Therefore, it is so natural for it to be expressed in music. So bhajans, all bhajans, all devotional songs, they are sung on a particular melodies. Or more precisely, not really melodies, are musical formulas, which are called ragas. So in the 33rd chapter, which is the chapter describing Rasa Lila, this is from the commentary of Jiva Goswami, but is quoted by disciples of Srila Prabhupada who translated this part of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll read from there. According to an authoritative book on music, which is called Sangita Sara, there are as many musical ragas as there are species of life. Of those melodies, 16,000 are the best and were performed by the gopis in days of yore. Thus the gopis created 16,000 different ragas, or musical modes, and these have subsequently been disseminated throughout the world. So what Jiva Goswami is saying here, quoting from Sangita Sara, he's saying that there are so many different musical modes, or so many different melodies, as many as there are species of life. And 16,000 of them are considered to be the best, the highest. And they were performed by the gopis. And thus, gopis created 16,000 different ragas. And what's interesting, that the songs that we sing during the morning program, and in general, written by our greatest Vaishnavacharyas, such as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. So by them, all the bhajans are written. In their spiritual form, they are the servants of Srimati Radharani, means they are also gopis. Therefore, it indicates that the bhajans they wrote, or the ones they sung, they sing them not on some random melodies. That means that these melodies, the ragas, they are harmonious vehicles to correspond or to express or carry the meaning through the melody, as well as for the text, for the poetry. And by this combination, these pieces of spiritual expression, they're very powerful in the means of producing or conveying these emotions to those who hear and sing them. And it's interestingly confirmed by Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana. He says, Muttatvam pratichit shukasyaiva ragatva. He says, Lord Govinda has a form of spiritual bliss, just like a melody. Although it seems formless, in actuality, it assumes a subtle form within the mind. So it's a very interesting statement. We think that the melody is something formless. But by this statement, Baladev Vidyabhushana is explaining that actually the melody has a subtle form which is taken within the mind. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada recently, in preparation for this little discussion, I was reading a book, The Life of Unalloyed Devotion is about Yamuna Devi. And in her remembrances, at least twice I remember, she mentioned told a few stories about how Srila Prabhupada was very particular about, in the morning, we need to use the morning melody, and in the evening we need to use the evening melody. So the melodies are very important as much as the words. So before we go to the next section, which is called the flow of pure thoughts, in which we'll speak of the process itself of how to tune our consciousness and how to purify our mind in a river which is flowing through the bhajans, the river of pure thinking, of pure Vaishnavacharyas. Would anyone have any comments or any questions on the previous section that we discussed about the connection of music and bhakti? Okay. By the way, these 3 pictures of Srila Prabhupada are taken from this book about life of Yamuna Devi. These are very beautiful pictures which were taken by Guru Das Prabhu. This is Srila Prabhupada singing Hari Hari Vifale, which is, in at least one occasion, Srila Prabhupada said that this was his, it is his most favorite bhajan, Hari Hari Vifale. It's a very powerful picture, I really like them. So, once there was a construction site, and a person was walking by on the street and he saw builders were being very busy working on the construction site. So he came on this construction site and decided to ask. So he asked the first bricklayer. He said, "What are you doing?" And the bricklayer said, "Can't you see I'm putting a brick on top of each other, stacking them up." So, okay. Then he came to the second one and he said, "Excuse me, what is that you're doing there?" And the man said, "Can't you see I'm building a wall?" Then he went to another builder, to another bricklayer, and he asked exactly the same question. And the last one said, "I'm building a temple." So all of them, they're doing exactly the same thing. They're putting bricks on top of each other, they're building walls, but the picture inside, according to their level of realization, is different. And therefore the result will be different. So why do we need to understand what are we doing? Why do we need to know the word-for-word translation, understand each and single word in the bhajans of the morning program, in the prayers? Because in the morning, basically, apart from japa time, most of the other activities is we're singing devotional songs, we're singing prayers. And it is a little strange, at least a little strange, if we sing songs in a different language and we don't even know what they mean. Of course, someone will say hearing is purifying, but the real purification is to get in the mood. So if we don't understand, if we don't get in the mood, which is, or we say, if the mood is only created by the music or the singing, by the musical ability of someone, or in some cases, the musical disability of someone, if this is what our mood is created by, then this experience is very shallow. And what usually happens is, if we become a little bit more experienced in attending the morning program, then sometimes we can just put on a show that, we look very absorbed and we're trying to pray, but inside we don't really connect to the meaning of the words. And such type of behavior, it will lead us into madness of sahaja, nothing else. But some other people might say, I think for me it's enough that I know that this song is about spiritual master, And this song is about Tulsi, and this song is about Krishna or Gauranga, you know, and while singing it, I can just pray myself. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, Srila Sanatana Swami, he's giving a very nice verse explaining about what it means to be attentive and what are the ingredients for one to perfect their chanting of their japa, which can also be related to singing the morning program prayers. To save time, I won't quote the whole verse, but one of the most, I can just read the English. In order to perfect one's chanting of japa, one needs to cultivate the following qualities: control of the mind, internal and external purity, silence, and then the one we were looking for, contemplation on the mantra's meaning, patience, and steadfastness. So in one sense, you know, if we're putting someone for the morning program, we're inviting someone to come. It's a little bit unfair if we don't explain to them at least something about chanting, something about the Guru Tattva, some basic points about Vrindavan, or the gopis when we sing Tulsi prayers. So below is the quote from Srila Prabhupada, which in one sense proves the opposite, but does it really? Let's read it. For offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you do not require any high qualification. It doesn't matter. You can offer your prayer from any standard of life. Not that you have to become a very learned man, very scholarly man, and you have to present your prayers in a very nicely selected words, so that poetry, rhetoric, prosody, everything is there, metaphor. Nothing is required. Simply you have to express your feelings. So someone may quote Prabhupada in this way and say, Prabhupada said, no, we don't need to be scholars. We don't need to understand each and every word. You know, we just need to express our feelings. But another important point from here is that not that we need to become Sanskrit scholars, but also expressing feelings. We need to get these feelings from somewhere. You know, we need to understand what feelings are valuable. Of course, Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardana. He is not accepting our nice Sanskrit pronunciation, our scholarly abilities. He is Bhava Grahi Janardana. He wants to accept our mood. So our feelings, they also have to be suitable. And this is called Anukulena, something which is pleasing to Krishna. The feelings that we need to offer, express our feelings, they have to be pleasing to Krishna. So where do we get these feelings? Where these feelings are coming from? In the conversation on the train to Allahabad in 1977, Srila Prabhupada says, they do not know how things are happening. Thinking, feeling, willing. First of all, thinking, then feeling, then willing, then working. So thinking, feeling, and willing. So the feeling will come from thinking. What feeling do we have that we can offer? It's like, imagine a person is coming from a simple, very simple village person. He's coming to the capital of Great Britain, and he's appearing in some very sophisticated restaurant, a very expensive place. And he's sitting there, it's his very first time in the restaurant. And when they sit in the restaurant, then the waiter comes and then brings them the menu. But they don't know what these things mean, all these different items on the menu. What are these things? And so what as a village person, what would they do? They look around and they see and they say, I want that thing like this person has on their plate. I think this is something what I like. And this is our situation. It is our situation because You know, when we think or when we speak about love, you know, every morning we repeat that the goal of all our spiritual activity is to obtain love of Godhead. But when we think about love, what our association, what our impressions in the mind, some of them it's best not even to express them publicly, because all our experience is based on our material experience and millions of lifetimes. So another example is Dhruva Maharaj. He was a 5-year-old boy, and you know, after performing this austerity, he received the darshan of Narayana himself. And he understood that this is the time to offer the prayers, because he was just a little boy. He didn't know Sanskrit and he didn't know how to offer the prayers. What happened then? Then Lord Narayan, he took a conch shell and he touched it on Dhruva Maharaj's head. Anyone knows what the conch shell represents? Anyone knows? The conch shell. I can chat. There's a chat here. Yes. Okay, let's see. If you like, you can write things in chat. So we can, if you don't want to switch on your microphone, then we can communicate through means of chat. So the conch shell represents the element of ether, mother. Ether. In sound. So sound travels through ether according to the Vedic conclusion. And so the sound means the Shabda Brahman. So by touching the conch shell on the head of Dhruva Maharaj, then immediately Dhruva Maharaj received all the conclusions and all the ability to offer prayers in a perfect Sanskrit poetry. And actually, poetry is present in every languages, and is considered to be the highest type of, you know, verbal expression, is to speak poetry, or to write poetry. There's so much meaning can be expressed in just a few lines in a poem. You don't have to write so many paragraphs and pages. Just a few lines can take the whole impression from one heart to another. And actually Krishna, he only speaks poetry. And his devotees only speak poetry to Krishna. In the same way, the prayer that we recite, Mukam Karoti Vachalam, Pangum Langayate Gim, Yat Kripatamaham Vande, Sri Gurudinataranam. And the person who is dumb, by the mercy of the spiritual master, he is enabled to speak beautiful poetry. So Srila Prabhupada gave us these prayers. In the same way, so we can develop, by contact with these beautiful prayers, by contact with the heart of pure devotees, very advanced devotees, Lord Krishna's associates, we can get the glimpse of what the true aspiration, what the true feeling is. So the thoughts of the bhajans become, how do they become my thoughts? So when we read the translations of the bhajans in prose, for example, if sometimes when devotees, when we sing these bhajans, sometimes we recite the whole translation before, or sometimes after. And when you read them, the mind is thinking, I mean, this is all very nice. This is very advanced, but these are not my thoughts. This is not my level. And it just has very little to do with me. I understand that some very nice person wrote this. And I understand he's a very great Vaishnav, but my situation is completely different. You know, the reality of my heart is completely different. But if someone, say, reads the same translation, but in an expressive way, with some emotion, with some feeling, you know, making the pauses where it's required, immediately the same words of the bhajana are perceived differently. Why does this happen? Because the mind gets more emotionally involved. But when we sing the same prayers with faith and understanding the meanings of each and single word as we sing them, these thoughts actually become our thoughts. and the mind becomes emotionally involved. And one of the points is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is explaining that the way to conquer our inattention, and he gives many different forms of inattention, is to make our mind emotionally involved. And so what the flow of pure thought means this: the thoughts, as Srila Prabhupada explained, that before feelings, they have to be thinking first. And the thoughts, they come by association. And only for a very intimate association we can acquire any type of thoughts, and especially pure way of thinking. Intimate association means emotional exchange. Like, even preaching, there are different types of preaching, but the most powerful preaching, which is actually changing people's hearts, is when there is an emotional exchange. When the person is sharing their experience, opening their heart. And this type of preaching is the most powerful. Therefore, contemplative hearing and singing enables our mind to start thinking like saintly Vaishnavas. So we get this, we get in touch with pure thinking. So when we let our mind to bathe in the river of the flow of the river of pure thoughts of the Vaishnava acharyas, one can have a very intimate connection, very intimate association, heart to heart connection with our previous acharyas who are still here. And if we're going back to the restaurant example, this was a very nice one. This is coming from Haridev Prabhu's book. I could really relate to that. So if we read the translation before singing the bhajan or after, then the connection, we won't be able to connect with the flow of the thoughts of the Vaishnava acharyas. And we won't be able to assimilate or think that these thoughts have something to do with me. Or whatever we feel will be just related to the musical performance of the singer or the environment. So we can have some feeling, and I'm sure many of us will have some experience, some emotions during the morning program, even just singing other bhajans, or hear people sing bhajans. But many times, it's really produced just by someone's music ability.
Krishna Sahara, thank you. No.
And so the example here, given by Haridev Prabhu, going back to our restaurant example, is that imagine you cook vegetables separately from the spices. So you have two different plates. In one plate you have the vegetables, and the other plate is all the mixed turmeric and hing and coriander, and if you prefer a little chili or whatever you like. But it's on a separate plate. So first, you take the vegetables and then you put the masala inside, or the other way around. You can take the spices first and then put the vegetables in your mouth. So it's exactly the same as when we read the translation of the prayer before, we read it after. And of course, the most preferable experience is when everything is nicely prepared together. So this is a nice analogy of why we need to understand each and every word of what we sing. So, by the way, what I wanted to share with all of you is we created a little handout for everyone. This is the handout. It contains the translation of Guruastakam prayers, including the Sanskrit and English translation, plus a very interesting way of studying them. Let's see. But I sent you the link. Would you be able to share this link with everyone? Because I cannot find it here yet. Let's see. Just a second. Okay, there it is. So here's the link. If you wish, you can download it right now. So when we get to the prayers, we can all follow together. So let's see, anyone would have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything so far? Anything on the topic of why do we need to understand the translation while we sing? So everyone is okay. Then, actually, the material that we just went through, that was still from day one. So now it's 1 hour. We have still 1 hour. Now we can start with the actual today's presentation. So Sri Guruastakam, the 8 prayers glorifying the spiritual master by Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. Interesting, when I was collecting material for today's discussion, we came across that actually there is more than one Guruastakam. It's quite interesting because we only thought Guruastakam is what we sing in the morning in ISKCON. As we spoken last time, Guruastakam is a very famous prayer which was sung and practiced and prayed by many Vaishnava devotees, Gaudiya Vaishnavas in different places. Not just the followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, but other, as they call themselves, more traditional, which is an interesting topic within itself, but we won't go into that. So another Guruastakam is actually written by Adi Shankaracharya. So there is more than one Guruastakam. And so the proper name for Guruastakam that we sing is called Gurvastakam or Gurudev Ashtakam. Guru means Guru, everyone knows, the spiritual master, and Ashtakam is the type of poetical composition which is consisting usually of 8 verses. So Ashta means 8, Gurvastakam. Sometimes devotees refer to Guruastakam as Samsara Prayers. So we know what samsara means. Samsara means the cycle of birth and death. Is something which is considered to be very unwanted. And when we call them samsara prayers, there's not a very exact representation of what the prayers are. The prayers to the spiritual master. The 8 prayers glorifying the spiritual master. In the same way, like there are devotees whose spiritual name would be Patita Pavana Das, Patita Pavana Prabhu. And for short, Patita Pavana means, Patita means the fallen, and Pavana means the savior of the fallen. And sometimes devotees or friends, they would call their friend just Patita. And Patita literally means fallen, so it's not very, very nice to call someone fallen. So it's not very nice to call the Guruastakam prayers a samsara prayer. It's just a little point. So this is the structure for today's discussion. Sri Guruastakam will make a little introduction. Then we describe the Sri prayers according to the ancient type of study. It's called the fourfold study, which is used to study any type of scriptures, or even mantras, or even verses. Then we go through the chronicles, we go through a little bit of history and the significance of this prayer. Then we describe the mood, not just the Guruastakam prayer, but also we'll speak about the mood of the whole mangala arati. And the last section is called the internal dimension. So this is the section where we'll go and describe every single verse. We'll go through the Sanskrit. And there are 2 ways, actually there are three slides for each verse. And in which we'll be able to understand, of course, not the full depth. It's impossible to understand the full depth of this prayer, but at least to a degree of our realization, we'll be able to deepen our understanding of these prayers and to enhance our experience in the morning or whenever we sing and pray them. Sri Guruastakam prayers. So there is a warning. The warning is, as we were just speaking about realization, many of the prayers in the morning program, like Guruastakam prayers, or for example, the prayers that we sing, the Tulsi Kirtan that we sing to Tulsi Maharani, these prayers are very, very advanced, and the subject matter requires a lot of explanation. So to be safe, and we need to be warned that many of the verses and the meaning of them is far, far beyond our current situation, current realization. So what has to be our correct attitude? So there are two mistakes that can be made. Some devotees may say, oh, this is too high, we should not even get into that. And some devotees will just go there without any hesitation, thinking that this is their level already. Both of these two types of attitude are wrong. The correct attitude, listen to one class, and this is a very universal principle, which I really, really liked. The principle is, for example, like when we used to be kids, and when the body used to grow very, very quickly. Remember the summer where all the boys and girls, they came after a summer break, and all of them were considerably bigger and stronger, and their voices changed, because kids, they grow very quickly. And therefore, sometimes parents, they would buy clothing or shoes for their children so they can grow into them. So when they buy this pair of shoes, they're a few sizes bigger than what their feet are right now. But in the matter of a few months or maybe a year, they will grow into this new pair of shoes. So it's a very, very nice analogy of how we need to understand, how we need to treat what's supposed to be our attitude towards these prayers. So these are the prayers that we need to grow into. So the Guruastakam prayers, Tulsi, Kirtan, and so on. Another beautiful analogy is the analogy of the cupboard. And this is also very nice. So analogy of the cupboard is, usually the cupboard is the place where you keep all your things. And there's a particular logic of how you keep things there. Things that you use every day, you would keep within the reach, like in the shelves, which are, you can easily reach with your hands. Other things that you don't use daily or so regular, you can store somewhere else, in the drawer, in the back. You understand that these things are useful. You may use them in the future, but right now, there is no way you can use them. And you can put it on the top shelf. So in the same way, when we hear these prayers, and if our hearing is consistent, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains there are two types of hearing. It means we can hear things in a consistent way. It's called krama shuddha shravana dasha. Yes, krama shuddha shravana dasha. Means we hear things in a systematic way. And the other way to hear things is kramahina shravana dasha. Means where we hear things, when we take prasadam, we put on YouTube lecture, and we listen to 15 minutes of the lecture about how to bring up children nicely in Krishna consciousness. And then we finish taking prasadam, and we switch off the lecture, and then we drive to work, we listen to Srila Prabhupada, half of the lecture, and then in the evening, we listen to some class about Rasulullah, and then so we hear things, we understand things, but our knowledge is not very systematic. And the example of the cupboard is very nice, that You know, when you walk into a brahmachari ashram, all things are there, but because they're not really in the places where they're supposed to be, therefore it takes half an hour to find something. It is there, but it takes a very long time to find it. You cannot really make use of it immediately. But when things are orderly, when they're put in a nice place with logic, and so everything is systematic, then whenever the time comes, you can immediately reach to that place, to the top shelf, and pull it from there. So this is, I thought this analogy is brilliant, so that's why I wanted to share it with everyone. So another thing, if you take a note, or you can print screen this, if you want to read yourself all the references, of course Srila Prabhupada quoted the verses from Guruastakam in many, many places in his books and correspondence and his lectures, conversations. Many times he quoted the Sanskrit and the translations and the logic of the verses, but in a more systematic way, where most of the verses or the whole Guruastakam is presented by Srila Prabhupada, are these three. Actually, there are two, because the journey of self-discovery, chapter 4, which speaks about the spiritual master, is based on the class which Srila Prabhupada gave in 1973 in Sweden, so in the university. And it's quite interesting that it's a university, so Srila Prabhupada came to preach to people who are completely new to Krishna consciousness. And he chose to speak on Sri Prayers. This is a very interesting thing. And the second source is class on Srimad Bhagavatam. It was given in London in 1971. So these are all the details. You can take note of this if you want. Okay, so this is the fourfold study that we've spoken about. So the Vedic rishis, they developed very powerful mechanisms of how to preserve the Vedic literature and the conclusions of the Vedic literatures. It explained that there is a very big and famous university city in India. It's called Mithila. It's very famous for its huge, great university. And as we usually know, places of study, they always have a library. And there was a recollection of one of the soldiers in the Muslim army, which were attacking the city of Mithila. And after some time, they took over the whole city. And of course, they took over the university. And it's explained by this Muslim soldier that the whole Muslim army, for duration of 6 years, they cooked their meals and they were hitting themselves in winter by burning the books which were in the Vedic, in the library of this university. The whole army for 6 years were burning all the pieces of literature. And the interesting thing is, although there are many ancient cultures in the world, the Vedic culture being the most ancient, but at the same time is the most preserved, because of these amazing mechanisms that are developed by the rishis, or the mechanisms of preservation of the Vedic text in the conclusions. There are many of them, many mechanisms, many devices, but one of them is this fourfold study. It's explained that no Vedic mantra cannot have any strength if these four aspects are not defined. And what are these four aspects? The first one is a rishi, means a person who revealed this text, revealed this mantra. So the interesting point here is that the mantra or the Vedas, they are not written, they're not created by someone because the Vedas, they always exist and they're just revealed. So they're written down, they're received through revelation in the heart. The second, so the first thing we need to know is who is that rishi for who this particular text was revealed. The second is a devata, means we need to know who is this mantra or the text is addressed to. So we need to understand who who are we praying to? The third one is called Viniyoga, means we need to understand what is the purpose or the function of the particular text. We'll discuss this later. And the chandas, what is the poetic meter? So if these four things are preserved, if we understand these four things, only then the Vedic mantra can have strength and can have meaning. So let's go one by one. So first is Rishi. So of course we know the Rishi who revealed the Sri Gurvastakam prayers is Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. So I thought it was quite significant to understand for us the personality of Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, so we can understand and connect more deeply to things that he wrote, or to things that were revealed through himself. So Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, he was born around 1633 or 1638 in Bengal, in a village called Devagrama, and he disappeared from this world in 1704. So it is explained that even when he was a boy, he was very learned from very young age. He was a very prolific Sanskrit scholar, and he was practically undefeatable. And from very early age, he was indifferent towards family life. And for the purpose of somehow binding his son and to be able to see his son, his father, Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura's father, he arranged for his marriage while he was very young. But very soon, Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, he renounced his family life and he went to Vrindavan. After having come to Vrindavan, Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, he took residence in the Bhajan Kutir of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's, our Acharya, who wrote Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and many other beautiful literatures. And in that place, he was performing his bhajan, and on the banks of Radhakund, the place was still maintained by Mukunda Das. And so in association with Mukunda Das, Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti carefully studied the Goswami's literatures in the holy place, and he wrote many commentaries on the books of the Goswamis, and he wrote a brilliant commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita, and he compiled many songs and prayers, and the prayer that we're studying today, the Sri Guruastakam prayer, is actually one of the prayers in the Stavamrita Lahari. Is a collection of prayers which is called Waves of Hymns of Nectar. So Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakur's spiritual master was Radharaman. He was his Diksha Guru. And so the connection to Lord Chaitanya, so the lineage goes like this. It's explained in one of the places by Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakur himself. So originating from Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who initiated Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami had a famous disciple whose name was Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur initiated Ganga Narayana. After Ganga Narayana, Krishna Charana, then Radharaman, and then comes Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakur. And it's arguable, in different places information is a little different, that his initiation name was Hari Vallabha Das. So the title Visvanatha Cakravarti was awarded to him by devotees. This is a very beautiful prayer, Vishwanath Pranati. So this is the pranam mantra. So if we actually want to follow the proper way of trying to get into the prayers, to understand the deeper meaning, one of the ways to do it, and probably a very sure way to do it, is try to connect with the person who revealed these prayers. And so this is a very beautiful mantra, very beautiful prayer. We took this, first time I came across with this in the book My Daily Prayers by Srila Shavaram Maharaj. This is the prayer that Shavaram Maharaj recites every morning when he wakes up. Not just this, among many, many prayers, but this is one of the prayers to the Guru Parampara. So Vishwasya Natorupaso Bhakti Vatma Pradarshanat Bhakta Chakre Vartitatvat Chakravarti Akaya Ye Bhagat. And in our research, we found a few nice translations. Actually, just yesterday, the Grace Madhavananda Prabhu gave a very comprehensive explanation of this verse, quoting many different places. So, because he has shown the residents of material universe, Vishwavasis, the path of bhakti, he is called Vishwanath. And because he is situated among the circle, chakra of devotees, he is called Chakravarti. And there's another very beautiful explanation, translation of the same verse. Because he indicates the path of bhakti, bhakti Vatma, Vatma means pathway. He is known by the name Vishwanath, the Lord of the universe. And because he always remains in the assembly, chakra, of pure devotees, he is known by the name Chakravarti. He, around whom a circle or assembly turns, the person who is the axis around whom the Vaishnava community revolves. So this is a little explanation of the position of Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. Actually, many of his contemporaries, they considered him to be an incarnation of Rupa Goswami, or representative of Rupa Goswami, because he was so prolific in his writing and in his explanations. So many very, very valuable things of our Vaishnava literature heritage is actually written by Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada, in his own purports, when he was writing his purports every single night, translating Srimad Bhagavatam, he was referring to Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura quite often. And another interesting thing, which is definitely significant to the lives of all devotees belonging to the family of Srila Prabhupada, is the famous occasion where Srila Prabhupada, which was a very fateful moment in Srila Prabhupada's life, when Srila Prabhupada was reading Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, verse 41, the commentary of Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura. We've heard this many, many times, but just recently I found the original commentary of Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti. So we've heard many times that Srila Prabhupada was deeply inspired to perform his preaching in the West pastime after reading this commentary, where Visvanatha Cakravarti explains the disciple must accept as his life and soul the order of his spiritual master. So let's read this original part. My sadhana is to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, to remember and glorify him as instructed by my Guru. That is also my goal, sadhya. It is my life-sustaining medicine. This is very beautiful. It is my life-sustaining medicine. For I cannot give up the sadhana and the sadhya. This is my most desirable object, my duty, and nothing else is my duty. Nothing else is desired, even in dreams. There may be happiness or sorrow. Samsara may be destroyed or may not be destroyed. This is no else for me. Let there only be resolute intelligence, fixed and pure bhakti. The next aspect of this analysis, of this fourfold analysis, is devata. It means to understand who these prayers are written to, who these prayers are addressed to. The prayers are, so the prayers are addressed to, and this is significant because it helps us to meditate in general and understand what are we doing while we're chanting these prayers, who are we addressing? Because we're singing these prayers to the spiritual master while the curtains are open. Mangala arati, we open the curtains for darshan. And Radha Krishna, Gaurnita, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Giriraj, they are present there, but we sing the prayers to the spiritual master. And this is very interesting. So who is the devata? Who is the prayer addressed to? Of course, the first and the very obvious answer is the Guru. And we know also that there are different types of Guru. There are Shiksha Guru, there is Diksha Guru, there is Pradakshika Guru, there is Sannyas Guru, there is Bhajan Guru, and so on. Gauranga Mahaprabhu, if you reach Chaitanya Charitamrita, he had so many different gurus. So by his life, he set an example that one person can have and should have many different gurus. So who are we singing these prayers, who we're addressing, who we're praying to? So of course, in our family of ISKCON, we see all the spiritual masters in connection to Srila Prabhupada. So if we don't see our spiritual master, Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru, not to be in connection with Srila Prabhupada, that means we're not in ISKCON. Means we're not in a family of Srila Prabhupada, because all other initiating spiritual master, all other gurus and members of Parampara are there to bring to us the message of Srila Prabhupada, the teaching of Srila Prabhupada. In fact, Srila Prabhupada disciples sometimes described as, because Srila Prabhupada's personality has so many different, shades and appearances, so many different dimensions. And therefore Srila Prabhupada's disciples are there to enhance or to magnify this particular quality of Srila Prabhupada. So when the curtains open and we sing the prayers, Guruvastakam prayers, we need to understand that we're singing all these prayers in connection to Srila Prabhupada, so we can sing them to our Diksha or Shiksha Guru in connection with Srila Prabhupada, not otherwise. And then the question arises, the next question, is it to Shiksha Guru or to Diksha Guru? We understand that our parampara is a Shiksha parampara, although especially in ISKCON we know that Diksha Guru in some cases takes much more prominent position than the Shiksha Guru. There's a whole big different discussion. Guru Tattva is one of the most difficult topics, so we won't go into this for two reasons. But an interesting point here is that whether we're praying to Shiksha or Diksha Guru, once Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj was asked this question, who is more prominent? Is it Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru? And he gave a very brilliant, short and very beautiful answer. He said, whoever occupies your heart. So whoever occupies your heart is more prominent. And the second point here is that we address this Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what can be the meditation here? When we're talking about Guru, there's another point that we need to discuss, is that not just we always connect the Guru with Srila Prabhupada, but also we need to always remember that our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, and remember, meditate on them in connection to Gaur Nitai, Radha Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To always meditate that Guru is sitting at the feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu or the Panchatattva. There's a very significant point given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he says, only if we see the service by which our Guru is connected with Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we will see our Guru in a correct way, and we will not commit an offense of trying to enjoy our Guru. So seeing the connection, meditating how our spiritual master is sitting at the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai or Panchatattva, this is the safe position by which we won't be committing Guru Aparat. Otherwise, we can very easily slip into some kind of personality cult. And there have been many occasions like this throughout the history. Or you become kind of an idol worship. So these two connections are very important to Srila Prabhupada and our gurus, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the second point, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So either Gaur Nitai or Radha Krishna, whoever we have on our altar. And it's a very beautiful meditation, means a meditation of gratitude. We say His divine grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So his divine grace, that means whose divine grace? Who is divine grace? Whose divine grace is that? This divine grace belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is sending us a guru to see how we will treat his representative. And according to the way we treat his representative, Krishna will decide whether will be allowed in his proximity, in his close association, close service, or whether a safe distance has to be still maintained. So a nice prayer or a nice meditation of gratitude can be, please help me to learn from my guru how to serve you in the best way. Please arrange everything in my life in a way that this can be facilitated. And the last thing in this point is that in general, it's very, very pleasing to Krishna when we glorify his devotees. One of the most pleasing things to Krishna, if not the most pleasing thing, is to hear the glorification of not Krishna himself, but his pure devotees. So another answer to this question is, why do we offer prayers to the spiritual master when the curtains are open? Is that it's very, very pleasing to Krishna to hear the glorification of his pure devotee. The third of the fourfold study is chandas. Chandas means poetic meter. So as we discussed previously, that the meter or the melody, how we recite the verses, is very, very significant and important. And so this meter is called upajati. As usually the Vedic literatures, they are full of descriptions, of very systematic descriptions and very exhaustive classifications. And there's a whole science of how to figure out the meter of a Sanskrit verse. I don't know much about that, but it took us a little while to find this information, although it just takes 2 seconds to present. It says, you say upajati. Now, upajati is quite a famous Vedic meter, poetic meter, which is like the meter of Govinda Damodara Stotram. Now, Govinda Damodara Madhaviti. So you can sing the whole Samsara Davana. Yeah, myself I call it Samsara Prayers. So you can sing the whole Guruastakam on this rhythm. You can sing Samsara Davana Lalita Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatvam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravinda. Well, of course, we don't sing it like this, but this is the upajati, this is the meter. And the last of the fourfold study is the Viniyoga. So what is the purpose or the function of this verse? Vedic literatures are full of different verses of different functions. For example, there are vidis of things that we're supposed to do. There are nishadas of things that we are prohibited from doing. You know, like the famous, we need to always remember Krishna and we should not forget him. So vidi means something we have to do, means to always remember. And nishada means something we should not do, means never forget. So Viniyoga means what is that function of the verse? And the function of this verse, of these verses, they are stutis and prarthanas, means they are glorifications and their prayers. This is a little technical information. Not everyone might appreciate this, but based on this technical information, we can definitely deepen our understanding of the whole philosophy in Guruastakam prayers. Let's look at Guruastakam at a glance. So these are all the 8 prayers, all 8 verses. And actually, does anyone know what is the last verse of Guruastakam? Radisha, anyone still here? It's quite a simple question. what is the last verse of Gurvastakam? Actually, although Ashtaka means 8, actually there are 9 verses. And 9th verse is called Shrutifal, and the Phala Shruti. Means what do we get after hearing or chanting or singing these prayers? So let's look at Gurvastakam at a glance. So here we present only 8 prayers, only 8 verses, because these are the ones that we usually sing. So the first 6 verses, they're the glorification of the spiritual master. Means there are 2 types of glorification of the spiritual master. The glorification of the spiritual master in his sadhaka form and in his siddha form. The verse number 7 is explaining Guru's position, and verse number 8 is a prayer or request. Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, in his commentary on the Bhagavad-Gita, which is a very, very, very deep and very powerful explanation of Bhagavad-Gita, the whole narration of it. Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, by his genius, he was able to connect and to see things which are actually not in the text of Bhagavad-Gita. See things which are actually not in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. But by his spiritual realization, he revealed all these things to us. One of these beautiful things he wrote in the commentary to Bhagavad-Gita, 18th chapter, text number 63, he's explaining the whole structure of Bhagavad-Gita. So we know there are 18 verses, and he described that there are 3 sections of the Bhagavad-Gita. So it means that if there are 18 verses, we can divide them by 6. So the beginning 6 verses, they explain topics concerning karma. The last 6 verses, they describe the topics concerning jnana. And in the middle 6 verses, they're describing about bhakti. And so in this way, he compared Bhagavad-Gita to be just a jewel box. So the bottom of the box is the first 6 chapters, meaning the first 6 chapters describing topics of karma. The last 6 chapters describing the topics of jnana. So this is the lead of the jewel box. And inside, what is kept is actually the most valuable. And this is the meaning of Bhagavad-Gita, is the knowledge about bhakti. So in the same way, if we look at the structure of Gurvastakam prayers, the most intimate and the most, what requires the highest spiritual realization, these things are also hidden in the very middle of these prayers. So let me just ask a question if anyone is still here, if anyone is still listening, because it'd be nice to get little feedback, because we just went through a lot of technical information.
Still here, Prabhu.
Still here, that's nice.
Thank you.
I know it's not everyone's cup of tea to go through really technical parts, but they're necessary, so they're necessary. Okay, nice to hear. Okay, now it's a nice section. It's a little bit more entertaining. So we'll go through the chronicles. We'll go through little recollections of what is the place of this prayer in Srila Prabhupada's heart. What is Prabhupada's relationship to the prayer? Because things like this, they make the whole experience even sweeter. Understanding that this is a famous prayer, understanding that many Vaishnavas pray like this, and it's coming from Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura, understanding his position. But understanding what is Srila Prabhupada's understanding of these prayers and what is his relationship with it makes our experience in the morning even sweeter. So, of course, we described in the previous session that Srila Prabhupada first heard these prayers either from his father in the Gaudiya mat from his spiritual master, because it was the practice, the prayer to be sung during the morning program, during the mangala arati. And it's a nice recollection of Shriman Sheshai Prabhu. This is from the book of Mulak Prakriti Mataji, which is a very beautiful book, and we recommend everyone to read for it. So he was a brahmachari at Keshavji Gaudiya Mat, is the place where Srila Prabhupada took sannyas, accepted sannyas. And so he is recollecting. I came to Bengal, to Mathura, from Bengal to Mathura in 1959. This is actually the year when Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. And Sheshri Prabhu, he was 17 years old at that time. And at that time, I met Swami Maharaj. Swami Maharaj was traveling between Mathura and Vrindavan in those days. One day, I saw him becoming immersed in Bhava while he was performing kirtan. Taking mridanga in his own hands, he was chanting Sri Gurvastakam with great feeling. So we know this is the time when Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would come to Srila Prabhupada a few times in his dream. So Srila Prabhupada was going for a very, very intense spiritual experience when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was urging Srila Prabhupada to take sannyas. And in this particular time, this recollection of Sheshri Prabhu, describing Srila Prabhupada, how he was with great feeling praying to his spiritual master with this particular prayers of Sri Guruastakam. So in the same year, 1959, one morning in Mathura Mat, Swami Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj, and Muni Maharaj took sannyas from Bhakti Pragya Keshu Maharaj. On the very day when Srila Prabhupada took sannyas, by his sannyas guru, Bhakti Pragya Keshu Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, immediately after he gave him sannyas, immediately Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada to give class. And this brahmachari, he recollects that I remember that Swami Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he stood up boldly on that very day and spoke a very strong lecture in English language. Another beautiful recollection was from Acharya Maharaj. He's also one of the disciples of Prabhupada Sannyas Guru. I will read this. In 1967, he brought a tape recorder with him. So that means in 1967, when Srila Prabhupada first came back to India after already preaching in America for 2 years. In 1967, he brought a tape recorder with him and a tape of many Western devotees singing Hare Krishna Kirtan to show us how this was actually happening. Everyone listened in amazement, and then he gave a lecture in the temple. He said that he had toured throughout the world, and he explained how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted the glories of his name chanted in every town and village. He said that this was Mahaprabhu's desire, and he must follow his words. We must follow his words. I recall how Swami Maharaj expressed his very deep realization. In the mornings and in the evenings, Srila Prabhupada led kirtans and singing Guruastakam in front of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So just picture this beautiful scene of how Srila Prabhupada came after so much struggle and preaching in the West. After 2 years, he came back to India. He explained that Radha Govinda called him back because of his bad health, and he came back to India. And he took few of his disciples, his early disciples, with him. And imagine the feeling with which Srila Prabhupada was performing morning and evening kirtan, singing Guruastakam in front of his spiritual master, who urged him to take sannyas, who urged him to go to the West. And after such success, he's coming back, and what a feeling Srila Prabhupada had praying this. On several occasions, I saw him weeping when he was singing Guruastakam. He was also overcome with emotion and shedding tears while he was singing Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. He would say, Hey Radha, Hey Krishna, Hey Madhava, with great feeling. When he stayed with us, he used to chant all night until 11 or 12 o'clock or later. He saw that we saw that he only slept a very short time, 3 or 4 hours, and he was writing and talking Harinam the rest of the time. And then, of course, later, it's famous in 1966. Actually, that was before that. In 1966, in New York, Srila Prabhupada recorded this famous Happening album, which is called the Happening album. It's called Krishna Consciousness. The original name for it is Krishna Consciousness, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So that was the first ever recording in ISKCON. And Satsvarup Maharaj, in his book, he's recollecting first Hare Krishna album. Mr. Kalman, a record producer, and his wife came to see Srila Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue one evening in 1966, and inspired by the joyous kirtan, suggested that Prabhupada and the devotees make a record. Once inside the studio, they practiced with the sound engineer for 15 minutes, and then the record was cut on the first take. Prabhupada played a wooden call, mridanga. Others played kartals or sticks. The Hare Krishna mantra on the first side. So as you remember the records, the vinyl records, they had 2 sides. And so the first side was the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 12 minutes. And then Prabhupada's explanation of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And the second side, the B side, there was only one track there. And it was the Gurvastakam Prayers, which Prabhupada sang himself. And the translation of the Gurvastakam, so now we know Gurvastakam, the 8 prayers to the spiritual master, but Prabhupada's original, the first very rendering in English of this prayer, he said that this is the chant to the mercy of the spiritual master. Very beautiful translation. And this CD was, or this recording, when it came out, it got sold out very quickly. And apparently, the Beatles also got a hold of this copy, and they were listening to it. And that was their first contact with Srila Prabhupada and the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So next we'll discuss about the mood. And I think that will be the final part of today's discussion. So we'll discuss about the mood of the chanting of the Guruastakam prayers and also the mangala arati. While preparing for this discussion, I've contacted His Grace Bhavananda Prabhu, who's very, very close to Srila Prabhupada, and he's done a lot of wonderful service for Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada appreciated him a lot. And he recollected that in 1973 in Mayapur, His Grace Bhavananda Prabhu, he was sitting in Srila Prabhupada's room during mangala arati. And from his room, Srila Prabhupada, that was in Lotus building, Srila Prabhupada could hear the kirtan being performed, the mangala arati kirtan. And that was not the morning melody. They were singing what we call the Prabhupada melody, the famous Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And Prabhupada instructed Bhavananda Prabhu to go downstairs and to stop the kirtan and to tell them to sing the morning melody. And so Bhavananda Prabhu had to go downstairs, stop the whole kirtan, and explain what is the correct melody to be sung in the morning. Also, Srila Prabhupada instructed Bhavananda Prabhu that in Mayapur, and just in general, that we should chant Udila Aruna and Jiv Jaga by Bhaktivinoda Thakur before the deities, the curtains open for mangala arati. So Bhavananda Prabhu said that they were maintaining this instruction for a while, but then somehow or other it slipped. But that was Prabhupada's instruction also to sing Udila Aruna and Jiv Jaga. So for those who are into bhajans, this is a nice addition to the morning program. And to be honest, myself, I was looking for a quote or place where Srila Prabhupada speaks about what is the mood of the prayers, how we need to sing before mangala arati. Because myself, I am Hainamandir, the monastery of the Holy Name is in Lithuania. And I was really, really impressed and amazed by the way, by the mood of how they perform mangala arati. You really feel it's a sacred act. It's very small temple room in the middle of the forest. Beautiful deities, Radha Govinda. And the atmosphere is very intense. The brahmacharis, they stand in front of the deities in a very, very soft, melodious voice, just kartals and very soft mridanga. Very intently and deliberately, everyone is singing the Gurvastakam. And you can really feel something special happening in the room. And I was thinking, this is exactly the way, and apparently in many different prominent temples in our movement, this is the way mangala arati is performed. Devotees are not playing bumpers, devotees are not playing loud beats and mridanga, because the meditation is that Radha Krishna just woken up, or if it's Gorantai also, the deities, they just woken up, and it's a very quiet time of the day, so we should keep it like this. So I was looking everywhere for the quote where Srila Prabhupada is instructing us that this is the way we need to perform mangala arati. But here what I found. During the opening of the Lotus building in Mayapur, 1974, Srila Prabhupada arrived in the evening, and the next morning devotees had mangala arati. So it's Mayapur, 74. Many devotees came. So it's packed with devotees. There were around 1,000 devotees in Mayapur. So it was the first big mangala arati with Srila Prabhupada in the Lotus building for that festival. The mangala arati was absolutely tumultuous, making uproar. Uproar, I looked it up. Uproar means, if you look in the dictionary, uproar means loud. The tumultuous means an uproar, making a loud, confused sound. So that was the mangala arati. From where he was, it means Srila Prabhupada, he looked around and nobody's feet were touching the ground. Almost like everyone was on the ceiling. Everyone was dancing and jumping, and really jumping. So much so that most of the time in the kirtan, you can only see people in the air. And the sound was absolutely tumultuous. It was so ecstatic. And actually the kirtan was sung by no one else but His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And after the kirtan, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he came into Srila Prabhupada's room to have a conversation. And Srila Prabhupada immediately told him, if you keep chanting like this, then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself will personally come here and take you all back to Godhead. So I was looking for a quote where Srila Prabhupada would explain that the mangala arati has to be like this, very soft and melodious. But here we see the example of complete opposite. Everyone was jumping, and was making uproar and loud, confused sounds, and everyone was in the air. And Prabhupada was very deeply impressed by this type of chanting. So now everything is black and white in Krishna consciousness. So the main thing is the quality of our chanting, not the way it's performed, the external form. And of course, many times it's easier to concentrate when the melody is soft, and we try to really meditate and really pronounce every single word and understand what we're doing, rather than when the kirtan gets really loud and everyone starts spinning around and no longer the holy name or the deities are in the center. You just look around and you think who's going to break their neck first. Devotees start swinging around. So like this. The next section is internal dimension. So this is the place where we're discussing, that was the mood. It's the place where we're discussing the Guruastakam verse after verse, getting into Sanskrit. So we have 7 minutes left. And actually I would prefer it to be this way, so we can have a whole session next time when we can really dedicate the whole 2 hours of just going one verse after another. All right, 9 verses. And there's a lot of beautiful points to discuss, beautiful pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, and beautiful meditations also shared by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Some real meditation that we can actually implement, or we can have in our mind and our heart when we chant these prayers next time. Something very vivid, practical. So 6 minutes left, so I would like to break for little questions or discussions. Maybe someone had any reflections on something that stood out for them in this presentation. So I'd like to get some little feedback because it was very, very quiet here.
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question?
Yes, Mataji.
I understand in your presentation, you've really made it clear that power of sound is just very, very important with the mantra. Now, when the Brahmins are doing the invocation to, when they're doing the sacrifice, the fire sacrifice, and they're singing the hymns or the mantras, why do they sing in that quite a high-pitched sound? Because you're kind of inviting the deities, aren't you, to appear in the sacrifice. The way they sing, I just don't understand why they sing in quite a high-pitched sound, in a high-pitched way.
Yeah. Okay, it's an interesting question. So basically, the question was why Brahmins performing the fire sacrifice or reciting the mantras, Vedic hymns, they recite in a very specific voice, very specific intonation. Once I listened to a class by His Holiness Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj, and he was explaining that there's a particular type of chanting. Vedic literatures, although there's a lot of mystical part to the spiritual practice, but also the Vedas are very practical. And so the practical part of this type of chanting is that nowadays we have amplifiers, we have microphones, we have many other different devices. But even in Srila Prabhupada's times, when you look at the videos of Visvanatha Maharaj leading Kirtan during Rath Yatra festival in San Francisco, and he doesn't have any microphone, and he's leading a big Kirtan. Imagine right now in London, Rath Yatra festival without any amplifiers. But that was possible. So this is one of the devices that the Brahmanas from young age, that would be taught how to recite the Vedic hymns in a particular way that it will be very loud and clear, and everyone could hear the transcendental, purifying sound vibration. So this is one of the aspects of that I can recall at the moment. Is that okay?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else would like to offer something? Okay, let's see who is here. Rishabh Garanga Prabhu is here. Still here. He's here, but he is not here. Okay. Anyway, I would like to conclude here. So first I would like to offer my gratitude to all the devotees that helped us in the course of this. Actually, it was a very nice journey for myself, researching for this seminar. And many amazing devotees, they assisted us. And His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu, he offered a lot of help. And His Holiness Bhakti Gyan Maharaj, and His Grace Madan Mohan Prabhu, and Vatsala Prabhu, and Shyamananda Prabhu from Moscow Temple, and His Holiness Anandavardhana Maharaj, And so I would like to offer my gratitude to all of these devotees who helped us out. And one of the amazing things was just to get in touch, to have a reason to get in touch with this exalted soul. So that was nice. And of course, to all the devotees who are present who consider the topic of morning program prayers to be worthy of their time for 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon. So thank you all very much. Maybe there'll be, not maybe, I hope there'll be another session, because we have a lot of nice information, a lot of practical stuff. So somewhere near future, we'll see each other online via Zoom. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Thakura ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Please download the handouts. They're very practical, so you can start memorizing the prayers right now. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Bye.